Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Hey everybody, welcome into Monday Madness. I absolutely love that intro, and I'm sitting here watching the viewers grow as we play it out. It gives everybody a little chance to come in and also tells everybody a little bit about what we're doing. Tonight, of course, is our favorite night because it's Monday Madness, and you know what that means. We've got all of the wonderful stories and just fun that we have here on Monday Madness. We cannot have it without our dear friend, Mr. Steve Stockton. Come on in here, Steve. How you doing?
Hey everybody, how you doing?
How fun is this going to be tonight? What you got going on?
I just got a skeleton applauding back there behind us.
Yay! He likes the intros.
Yeah, looking forward to this. Talking about some of my favorite ghost investigators, I guess you would call them, yesteryear.
Yesteryear.
They weren't provokers. They weren't exciters. They didn't do it for the ratings. They didn't see something everywhere they went. But they were genuine about it, and they made it interesting. And
yeah, and it was on their they blazed the trail. We had the whole spiritualism movement, and everybody kind of kept that all hush hush, and we were going to meet for a little dinner party and stuff like that, and then afterwards they bring out the Ouija board or the medium, and then they had like all the people running trying to basically find the fakers, like Harry Houdini many musicians. We had one last week, Harry Blackstone. He used to try to do that, and I think that's the whole reason he was there with.
And I want to correct myself. I misspoke. I said he was Wizzo on the Bozo show. That was actually Marshall Brodeen.
Oh, was it?
Wizzo. It had the TV magic cards. They're hard to tell apart.
That was on the Bozo show? Gosh, I didn't remember that.
Not the local ones, but the main one out of Chicago.
Yeah.
That was the main
early
Bozo show. But a lot of the local TV stations had their own Bozo. We had one in Knoxville, Tennessee on WTBK. Totally different Bozo, but it was a Bozo show nonetheless.
I remember him. I remember Soupy Sales, Mr. Green Jeans, and of course, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's what I remember the earliest of. But I absolutely remember Captain... Mr. Green Jeans. I just said it, didn't
Captain
I?
Kangaroo.
Captain Kangaroo. There you go.
The treasure house.
The ping pong balls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they all had like puppets and stuff.
Mr. Moose and Bunny Rabbit and Grandfather Clock.
Oh gosh, I forgot that. Who had the ping pong balls? Was that the moose? Where the ping pong balls used to fall?
Yeah, I think so. Whenever they said a certain word or said they didn't know or something like that, then the moose would drop ping pong balls on
Just
them.
Good fun. The best part was when Soupy Sales. I can remember sitting, oh gosh, I had to be 2 or 3, and we would get that vanilla taffy that was in like a long, flat, almost like the size of a candy bar, bigger than a candy bar now though, and they used to put them in the freezer. so you could crack them and break them in little pieces faster. And I was sitting there eating that, and I remember watching Soupy Sales, and my mom walked by, she goes, I think that man's drunk. I'll never forget it. Every time I eat taffy, I think about it. He was, most of the time. There was a cook, what was it, the Galloping Gourmet, Graham Kerr. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I sure
Oh,
did. I used to watch that show
he
when I was a
was a
kid. I don't
hoot.
know why, but I was fascinated with that show.
He used to get drunker and drunker, like, 2 glasses of sherry for me and one for the turkey. Remember? He was a
And
hoot.
Linda Lee Chavez says in the comments there, Soupy got in trouble.
He
He
did.
did indeed. He told the kids to go in their parents' wallet and get out those pictures of paper with the presidents on them, paper with the pictures of the presidents on them, and send them to. And he gave his real address. I think he got one actual note in the mail, one actual bill, a twenty
Yeah.
dollar bill, I think.
So much
But he
trouble.
got in so much trouble over that.
That's so
It was
funny.
just a joke, but
Yeah. A
some of the
short
kids
slurp.
actually tried it.
A short slurp, Linda says. Yep. Let's say hi to all these wonderful people in here. We got 16 in your live chat watching. Let's see. We've got Gray. Hello, darling. How you doing? We had a wonderful time last night. Linda, too. Ann Palmer was here. Blue was here. Chris Jarvis. And Edna, how you doing tonight? She says, Willard Scott. Hang on. Willard Scott was our bozo once upon a time. Was he?
And I think he was the
He's a
first
character.
Ronald McDonald as well, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look that up.
We have Be Kind in here. We have Chasing the Truth. Hey, Sean, how you doing, hon? Wayback Machine time. I think Sean likes that Wayback. I'd like to thank him for all the kind words he said in the other night on your show about our show, Steve, that we were doing the Wayback television. We were doing the old school paranormal TV last Monday. Sean said he really liked it. And
Yeah,
he said so on his
good.
show, and I appreciate that.
That the other night on his show. Yeah, Willard Scott was the original Ronald McDonald as well. And I think there's a
Ronald McDonald was
picture
always
of him
creepy
there.
to me. I don't know about you guys, but
He doesn't look anything like Ronald McDonald as we know him today.
oh
But
god, that's freaky
that's
scary.
that's frightening as hell.
Oh jeez, is that a Dixie cup on his nose?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, my
McDonald's cup.
That's funny. UK
There's a
Buffalo
little bit
Bills
better
fanatic.
picture.
Hello, darling. That's creepy.
That's scary. I wouldn't.
Yeah. Mairead, you beautiful woman, you. How are you, our friend? We're going to be talking a little bit, not far from you tonight. Borley, the rectory there in, is that in Sussex, Mairead? Do you know? I think it is. Grandpa C is here. Hello, Grandpa. Are you kidding me? Let's see who else I missed. Donnie. Hi, Donnie. We had a good time last night. I don't know if you caught any of the show, but we did an anatomy of a haunting, Steve.
Yeah.
It was really neat because it's the Smurls case that, it wasn't as famous, but they did a really fantastic made-for-TV movie in 1991 on the case. It started 75, went almost all the way to 87, I believe, and then it continued on until finally the church in 89 did a full-tilt boogie exorcism. But they made these people wait like 15 years for it, or I can't remember exactly when they started trying to get the exorcism, but all that. You got to jump through all kinds of hoops. I just don't understand why they just don't come and do it. I mean, what's it going to harm?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you be there if you'd know whether or not you had to continue on, wouldn't you? I mean, I don't get it. I just don't get the bureaucracy. I guess admitting, I don't know. No matter which way I look at it, I can't make sense out of it. Let's see. Donnie says I have a couple British friends. I don't know what he's saying here. Living here in the States, they seem to have taken to American football, baseball, NBA, not so much. Okay. That's sports ball stuff. I knew nothing about sports ball. And I think we caught everybody, honey. Uncommon Belief, I say hi to you. Thank you so much. He's my podcast roadie. And I appreciate all of my mods so much. And but only Uncommon Belief brings me hot tea and cigarettes when I run out. So that's a good person to hang on to. What do you think? Did we say hi to Chris? We did. All right. So, Borley Rectory, Steve. And then we've got Harry Price. Very controversial character. However, like you said in the beginning, these guys kind of broke the trail for us. I'm sure there was many other unsung heroes out there, but they really put their, face out there first. Now, there's lots of stuff on Harry, that he married a rich woman, and that gave him lots of time to look into his hobby, which was ghost hunting, and I forget what he called it. He wasn't calling it parapsychology yet. I think it was just psychology. But we're going to see, because I've got a couple of clips, and I thought it would be really neat to have a couple of things to look at. I've got a great little video here. Now, this video clip comes from a fantastic channel, and I want you guys to go check it out if you're interested in history, ghost stories, all the stuff that we do here. But this gentleman is in the UK, and he does travel tours and very, very good videos. So I grabbed just a few minutes of it. His video is like an hour and a half. We grabbed a few minutes of it, and I thought we could play it, stop it if you had a story about it, something about it. But it'll give us all a good background of not just the area where this was, but the history as well. And then I've got a couple of other short clips, and I've got a little surprise, 2 or 3 little surprises in here for the guests and everything else, and a little kind of like a little thing at the end that you can go this week and watch if you want. But the channel is The Legend of Haunted Borley is the name of the video. But the YouTube channel is Chris Halton, Halton. If I sent you the link in that, if one of the mods can drop this link, this is the time for that. Chris Halton, and it is on Haunted TV, YouTube. So we're going to drop that link for you. Steve, you want to watch a little bit of this video?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
All right, let's see what we got here. Enjoy. And if at any time, you could talk over it, whatever you want to do. All right, here we go.
According to records, the last Borley rectory was constructed on Hall Road near Borley Church by the Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Ball in the year 1862, and he moved there a year after being named as rector of the parish. The house replaced an earlier rectory on site that had been destroyed by fire in 1841. It was eventually enlarged by the addition of a wing to house Ball's family of 14 children. It's worth noting that in the 1950s, when they carried out an archaeological excavation of the site, the earliest remains they could find of a rectory dated to around the year 1550 to 1600. Interestingly enough, this finding underscored research by historians in 1939 who claimed there were no records of any religious institution such as a Benedictine priory as ever being built there.
Now, I just wanted to stop it right there because, Steve, you and I have talked about this. Now, there is just as much to say that there was one back in 15 or however far back they're going. Evidence that there was something there and evidence that there wasn't. So the reason this is so important is because there is a legend of a haunting of a monk and a nun. You're familiar with that one, right, Steve?
Yep.
And if there was no monastery there, which is what the legend says, then they're saying that, of course, the monk and the nun can't be haunting there. I myself, just in my own opinion, thinks that whether or not the monastery was there doesn't mean that there can't be ghosts of both of those people there. And Steve and I will probably bring up later on why we personally think that both those things could be true. But whether or not the monastery was there really doesn't mean much because it doesn't have a lot of weight on that, if that makes sense. But I don't want you to think that just because they're saying at this point in time that there was no monastery there ever, that it doesn't mean that two people didn't meet on the grounds there and the things that we're going to talk about tonight didn't happen. So just as part, a nunnery, yeah. But here we go. This is the Borley Hauntings and each family that moved in and a little bit about, we're going to get to the end here.
Just some people were confused about what a rectory is. It's where the rector lives or the priest. There might have been nuns and monks that lived there at one time, but the monks live in a monastery. The nuns do live in a place called a nunnery.
A nunnery.
Or a convent.
convent.
But the rectory is where the rector or the parish priest lived. That was his
I
house.
always called it a nunnery, and people here in America, like around this area, thought I was wrong. I think that's more of an English term, do you think?
Yeah,
It
I
maybe
think it
comes
is.
from that?
But a rector, that's a clergy or a parish
Absolutely.
priest or whatever. They gave them nice houses to live in. And usually the monks and the nuns didn't live so nice. Although some of those convents were pretty nice, I think.
I've pulled up a little bit of information on who the nun may have been. Again, these are all. I mean, we're digging back so far. I
Yeah.
mean, a
But wasn't
lot of this
there
happened
at
in
one
30.
time a rumor that they were meeting
Mm-hmm,
on the sly, that they'd been forbidden, of course, by their vows to
mm-hmm,
see each other, and they did anyway, and then
mm-hmm, and got caught. I mean,
got caught, and I don't know
the
if they were
the
put to death or they took their own lives or
yeah.
whatever. But there was rumors about something like that. Who knows? It's been a long time ago.
I know. And that's just it. You can't even, talking to people like Rob Guttrow and Claire and so many other people that have met ghosts that are, from 1,000 years old, and still repeating or still, intelligent hauntings, not just a tape, But we're going to touch on all that tonight, and we're going to get a little bit from Harry's point of view and a little bit from Peter Underwood's point of view, and I'll describe them along the way as we go. But I just wanted to say that point there, that just because it's not there doesn't mean that there isn't something like a nun or something similar there. Okay?
Indeed.
So here we go.
A year later, the first paranormal event reportedly occurred, with a few locals having heard unexplained footsteps within the house about that time. Various people claim to have witnessed a variety of puzzling incidents, such as a phantom coach driven by 2 headless horsemen during the next 4 decades.
4 decades.
The Reverend Henry Ball, who died in 1892, was also subject to what he reported as paranormal phenomena, but according to his death certificate, he died from locomotor ataxia, which today is known as tabes dorsalis, or in layman's terms, syphilis of the spinal cord and its appendages, and is characterized by shooting pains and other sensory disturbances, and in the later stages by paralysis and death. He also apparently had fathered a number of illegitimate children who also lived at the rectory. After he passed over, his son, the Reverend Henry, or Harry Foyster Ball, took over the living. On the 28th of July 1900, 4 daughters of the rector saw what they thought was the ghost of a nun at twilight and about 40 yards from the house. They tried to talk to it, but it disappeared as soon as they got closer. On one notable occasion, one of the daughters captured a photograph of what they reported to be the ghost nun. Although the clothing worn by the nun appears to be period authentic to their era, and according to more skeptical minds, seems to be one of the daughters, and even more curiously is the fact that the sisters reported seeing a nun dressed in dark clothing, yet this ghost manifestation is wearing light-coloured clothing, and nothing at all like a nun's habit.
Okay, now I had a question about this, Steve. Now, we're imagining the pictures, the cameras, and the film, the type of stuff used in this time. If you're looking at, say, like a CCTV, like it reverses the dark to light. So if I was wearing a black shirt, it would look white. I don't think the same thing goes for this, but they're basing the whole thing on the fact that the nuns of that time wore all black, as you see here, typical of that period. Again, it depends on what sect you belong to tell you the truth. But I don't think that this can't, you can't just throw this picture out because of the color of it, because we don't know how they're going to manifest.
There have been people spotted ghosts or apparitions that had an ethereal glow around them.
Exactly.
So even if she was wearing black, if it's kind of giving off a glow with those old slow cameras and film, it could do that, and it would blur like that.
I think so.
I don't see that as a valid argument about the color of the clothing.
That's what I'm thinking as well. And through a lot of these, because I've watched a lot of videos over the past couple of weeks about, this, it just seems that people go back and forth on stuff, and like that's why I mentioned about the fact of whether there was a monastery there or a religious something. It really doesn't have that much to do. I think the possibilities are all still there at this point. I don't see anything that's nixing it all out. But all right, let's go on. Everybody can see this pretty good? All right.
The local organist, Mr. Ernest Ambrose, later said that the family at the rectory were very convinced that they had seen an apparition on several occasions. And sadly, on the 9th of June 1928, the sickly Harry Ball died and the rectory again became vacant. In the following year, on the 2nd of October, the Reverend Guy Eric Smith and his wife moved into the house. Soon after moving in, Smith's wife was shocked while cleaning out a cupboard to come across a brown paper package containing the skull of a young woman. Shortly after, the family reported a variety of incidents, including the sounds of servant bells ringing despite them being disconnected, lights appearing in windows, and unexplained footsteps. In addition, Smith's wife believed she saw a horse-drawn carriage at night. In June 1929, events took a sudden change when the news editor of the Daily Mirror received from one of his staff a letter sent by the rector's wife, Mrs. Smith, asking if his paper knew of the address of the Society of Psychical Research, as they were experiencing unusual happenings in the rectory and wanted them to be investigated. Instead, he dispatched the seasoned reporter, Mr. V.C. Wall, to investigate. Wall, who arrived on the 10th of June, stayed for a week but witnessed nothing unusual. But in true journalistic fashion, he made up stories based on reports involving headless coachmen, nuns, and dragging footsteps. The Smith.
Leave her muted, Cisco.
Yep. Muted Cisco. That's unusual. So, basically, this is going to be important that if we understand what just happened, the people for the wife of the rectory wrote to the paper to see if they could get a hold of, because back then you went to the university, psychological research, that was the thing. And he just took it upon himself to go there to jump on the story. Stayed for a little while, and if he didn't see anything, he just said he did. Again, that doesn't mean that there wasn't something going on, because the stories already existed, right, Steve?
Yeah, somebody said they must have worked for CNN.
Probably. Even back then, because we're talking they're saying around the 30s at this point, right? Early 30s.
Yeah, they did things to sell newspapers. They would aggrandize things and add a little flourish to things. Anything to sell papers.
There's a cute they're telling nun jokes in the chat, Steve. Did you catch them?
Yeah, I saw those.
Here's one from Chris Jarvis. If a nun has a hole in her hat, is that a bad habit? And Grandpa C. I love you so much, Grandpa C. Y'all know why they call them nuns, right? I think we know the answer to that one. And he answers right here. It's a little further down. And there it is, because they don't get none. Well, this
Grandpa
one
C will be here all week. Don't forget to tip your waitress.
And Aunt Edna said that, she knows some nuns that'd beat your butt when you got home. They'd beat you again. And yeah, he probably worked for CNN, yeah. So I just want to let you know that too, because that reporter comes up later. Okay, there we go.
Smiths were naturally puzzled as to why only a reporter had arrived to start asking awkward questions. Wall reported this difficulty back to his office. The news editor of the Mirror then contacted a committed spiritualist who was preeminent at the time in the investigation of seances, in the form of Mr. Harry Price. The result was a tsunami of headline stories in the Daily Mirror.
There it is.
Harry Price, who arrived on the 12th of June, immediately reported new phenomena such as the throwing of stones, a vase and other objects. Spirit messages were tapped out also from the frame of a mirror. When they challenged Harry Price as to why he had taken charge of the case when they had requested the Society for Psychical Research, he explained that he attended as a foreign representative of the American Society for Psychical Research. Harry Price stayed only a couple of days in this first week, and did not return while the Smiths were in residence. And as soon
Okay, so you guys note, Harry Price went there a couple of times. As we pick up later, that's when he rented it and kept it. I think some people say he was in there 6 months. He had rented it for a year. We'll talk about that too. But here's the beginning of Borley really going off the chain. Because, as you see, it was in the newspapers. It's at Harry Price visits. And if you see pictures of him where he's standing in all this, he had a very elaborate laboratory. And he had every kind of gadget you can imagine. He invented all kinds of gadgets. I can't imagine what you think about the things that we have today for paranormal investigation, you know. But they had some pretty good stuff. I mean, I just watched a movie. It wasn't bad. The Ghost of Borley Rectory. And it was very good. It had Julian Sands in it, some others. And they kind of focused on someone you're going to hear coming up here is Mary Ann, which was the wife of the last rector that was there. And you'll see more of that. But the main deal is how much equipment this guy had, how much he came up with. Simple things, bells on a string to string across the hallway, recorders, at that time, what they had, I don't know what they had, that came in with Peter Underwood, but just all kinds of stuff. And he was just to the point of science, being able to prove things, and it was his whole life, and he was just so dedicated to it. You say what you want, some people try to take away everything he did, but even if he came up with stuff that has been disproven later, I don't know anything that has, but people talk about it quite a bit, especially back then, trying to give him a bad name. But he may have been a lot of things, but the man was what do you call it, a icebreaker, or broke through, really trailblazer, basically. So here we go.
As he left, these events ceased. Smith's wife later maintained that she already suspected Price, an expert conjurer, of falsifying the phenomena. And they weren't alone in their suspicions, because 2 staff members, Mary Pearson and Fred Tatum, reported the following, as related by Mr. Tatum. There was an incident at his first luncheon when Eva pepper of salt shot across the table, and Price made some reference, no doubt in jocular vein, to ghosts. Later, Mary told Mrs. Smith that she distinctly had seen Price through one of the other condiments. On another occasion, when they were in the scullery, a storm lantern went out, and Fred was strongly of the opinion that Price had manipulated the wick. Nevertheless, Mr. Wall stayed on and reported back to his daily story. At one time, on the 11th of June, he mistook Mary Pearson, the maid, for the ghost of a nun. She later admitted that she had put the apron over her head as a prank. And on another occasion, the gardener's bonfire seen at twilight was reported back to the Mirror as a spirit. For the night of June the 16th, he had 2 professional mediums sent down from London. But with Harry Price gone, absolutely nothing had happened. They sat anxiously in darkness at the rectory for many hours to no effect. Mr. Wall seemed unsurprised and phoned through a light-hearted piece, saying that the ghost had flatly declined to exhibit itself. The Smiths had decided that they had had enough and left Borley on the 14th of July 1929, with the parish having some difficulty in finding a replacement.
Now, how about that? So you've got all these, it just sounds like a bunch of adults going around pulling pranks and jokes on each other. And, any time like that, when you put something like that in a paragraph or, a paper, they're going, oh, the whole thing is made up. And that's one thing I'm trying to do tonight is just say, discern for yourself. Here's all the evidence. Go back and look at it. I've got a lot of links and stuff that I'm going to put underneath that you can go and look. But, I think calling it the most haunted house in England is probably a far stretch, because who can even guess at something like that? Where's the meter for the most haunted? The one we looked at last night was, if that's not the most haunted house in, in Pennsylvania at the time, I don't know what is everything. Like I said, you're going to hear a little bit of that here and there.
The following year, the Reverend Lionel Algernon Foyster, a first cousin of the Balls, and his wife Marianne moved into the rectory with their adopted daughter Adelaide on the 16th of October 1930. Lionel Foyster wrote an account of various strange incidents that occurred between the time the Foysters moved in and October 1935 when they moved out, and this was sent to Harry Price. These included bell ringing, window shattering, throwing of stones, bottles, wall writing, and the locking of their daughter in a room with no key. Marianne Foyster reported to her husband a whole range of poltergeist phenomena that included her being thrown from the bed. Before I delve more into the Foysters' tenure at Borley, here is some background on their relationship which may or may not explain some of the alleged paranormal events purportedly witnessed by Marianne. She was 22 years younger than her husband Lionel, and he was in very poor health, suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. Lionel and Marianne had been married in Brunswick, Nova Scotia in August 1922, when she was 23 and he 45. What was not revealed is the fact that Marianne was still married to an Irishman, a Mr. Greenwood, who she married in 1914 when she was just 15. She had lied about her age, claiming in fact that she was 17, and despite her marriage to Lionel, there was absolutely no proof of a divorce. The relationship between Lionel and Marianne seems to have been more than a little strange. Lionel clearly worshipped his young wife. What Lionel didn't know was that she was having a torrid affair with a lodger, a man by the name of Frank Peerless from Bermondsey in London. Lionel later supported both Marianne and Peerless by investing into a flower shop business in Wimbledon. While this business was in operation, Marianne and Peerless lived in London during the week and only returned to Borley at weekends. Suffice to say, people in London were under the impression that both Marianne and Peerless were married. Both she and Peerless had a sometimes violent relationship. On at least one occasion, Marianne explained to Harry Price that the black eye that she was sporting was caused by the Borley ghost, but it seems much more likely that this was a result of her constantly feuding with Peerless. In 1934, the flower shop went out of business and things briefly became very complicated when Peerless attempted to blackmail Lionel by threatening to reveal details of his affair with Marianne to the church authorities. This was resolved when Peerless ran off and later married a 16-year-old girl who had worked in the shop. By now, this situation had placed the Foysters in some financial difficulty. It was clear that Lionel's ill health meant that he would not be able to work for much longer. What little money the couple had left went when the flower shop business failed. In late 1934, Marianne moved into a flat in Ipswich, where she lived as Miss Foyster while Lionel stayed in Borley. In February 1935, Marianne married Henry Fisher, despite the fact that on paper she was still married to Lionel. Fisher was a man troubled by mental health problems, though he was a person of independent means thanks to his wealthy family. Incredibly, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher then returned to live briefly at Borley Rectory with Marianne's father, Lionel. One can only imagine how painful this must have been for him. In October 19...
Can you imagine? In a little town, he's living up in the attic with his rheumatoid arthritis, never got a divorce from his young wife, 22 years his junior. And she goes and marries another guy. By my count, I got three husbands now. No. And she moves him up into the... Well, it's nice of them to take care of him. I mean, but man, what a situation. And it seems like rampant pedophilia going through all these priests had all this.
No, that was just the way they did things back then.
They did.
You got married when you were in your teenage years. Otherwise, by the time you hit your 20s, you were an old maid or a spinster.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
My great-grandmother got married at 13 to a man that was, I think, 25 or 26. But again, that's just the way you wanted an older man who was kind of established, had his own business, had his own farm and stuff. She was young and could bear him lots of children, and that's what she did.
Yep. And a lot of times, too, it depends on your status and your family, because a lot of times, they had to marry you off just so they didn't have to feed you anymore. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's in every culture. It really is, So, here we go. they're almost done with this one here. But Marianne's kind of important to this story, so.
35, Marianne, Lionel and Fisher left Borley Rectory and moved into a cottage near Ipswich. Lionel was by now so ill he was unable to work, and he lived in a converted loft space above the cottage, posing as Marianne's devoted but bedridden father. This marks the end of the Foysters' association with Borley. Because of the publicity in the Daily Mirror, these incidents attracted the attention of several psychic researchers, who, after investigation, were unanimous in suspecting that they were caused by Marianne Foyster. Harry Price was born in Streatham in South London in the year 1881. As a child, Price had a very inquiring mind and developed many interests, particularly so in astronomy, performance art, conjuring and archaeology. Around 1898, Price began attending...
Conjuring kind of stuck out there. I mean, what in the world, right? Wouldn't you love to know?
Evening spiritualist meetings, and also took part in some private seances, which initiated his interest into the paranormal. He also developed an interest in coin collecting. In 1908, he moved to Pulborough, West Sussex, and worked as a salesman for paper merchants, and as a side interest wrote articles for 2 local newspapers. He later married an heiress, Constant Mary Knight, and they settled for the next 40 years in that town. This freedom from the necessities of having to work for a living gave Harry Price the ability to delve into his many interests, with spiritualism being the top of his priorities. Her family, however, the Knights, have strongly disagreed with the contention that Price lived from her private income. But here I digress.
Look at all his
In
ghosts
1920,
having
Price
I
joined
know.
the Society
So cool.
for Psychical Research, the SPR, and during the 1920s, gave
See if I can
Harry
stop
Price
it
the
right
ability to delve into his many interests,
Look at that.
with spiritualism being the top.
Look at all that equipment. This is what I mean. He had he called it a laboratory. I believe that's how he called it. But it was an amazing stuff. Look at this.
all kinds of gadgets and doodads and
Yeah.
who knows what.
Right.
It's dangerous.
And he was really big on things like magic boxes and these slates. He was explaining that he had paid, I don't know what £8 was back in the day. I mean, I don't know what it is now, but how much is £8, my UK friends out there, about in American dollars? It seemed like a lot, but he had what looked like 2 chalkboard slates, the old
Spirit
ones they used to
slates.
get. Yeah, and you put them together and pull them back, and they'd have writing and stuff on them. It was trick slates. They had this in the 1930s. I can't even, all the magic boxes and stuff that mediums would use to fool people that they were actually connecting, and it's crazy the stuff people would do. But there he is, all his glory.
Top
About
of his
$6.
priorities.
About $6.
Her family,
Thank
however,
you.
the Knights, have strongly disagreed with the contention that Price lived from her private income. But here I digress. In 1920, Price joined the Society for Psychical Research, the SPR, and during the 1920s, Price exposed a number of fake but famous mediums and gained a reputation for this field of paranormal research. Price formed an organisation in 1926 called the National Laboratory for Psychical Research as a rival to the Society for Psychical Research because of a number of disputes he had with them. In 1924, the National Laboratory of Psychical Research, which held Price's collection, was reconstituted as the University of London Council for Psychical Investigation. He had earlier made a formal offer to the University of London to equip and endow a department of psychical research and loan the equipment of the National Laboratory and its library. Price
They meant business, didn't they?
Yep.
Weren't they something? Here comes Harry.
was also friends with other debunkers of fraudulent mediums, including Harry Houdini and the journalist Ernest Palmer. But the career high point in Harry's life came at the end of the 1920s when, following a call from the Daily Mirror, he visited to investigate Borley Rectory. Borley remained vacant for some time after the Foysters' departure, and in May 1937 Price took out a one-year-long rental agreement with the Queen Anne's Bounty, which is basically the church commissioners the owners of the property. Through an advertisement in the Times on the 25th of May 1937 and subsequent personal interviews, Price recruited a corps of 48 official observers, mostly students who spent periods mainly during weekends at the rectory with the instructions to report any phenomena that occurred. Here is...
I got to pull over the podcast just for 1 second. Aunt Edna said she loves Harry Houdini. Aunt Edna, as far as I know, not a Nazi. Don't tell me if he is. I don't want to know. This is a joke. She understands.
An interesting account given by Charles Winter, a former Times newspaper editor who ran into Price's corps as an official observer. While at Borley, Winter came to two conclusions. One is that the rectory was indeed haunted, but on the dark side, in his opinion, Price was egging up some of the events which were alleged to have taken place, which of course cast a serious doubt on the credibility of the entire investigation. The experiences alleged by Marianne Forster...
I gotta say, that guy looks like a fun spoiler, doesn't he? He looked like he was up to something.
Yeah.
You know? Let me just ruin everybody's fun. Jerk.
...seemed to gain some traction when in March 1938, Helen Glanville, the daughter of S.J. Glanville, one of Price's helpers, conducted a planchette séance in Streatham in South London. Price reported that she made contact with two spirits, the first of which was that of a young nun who identified herself as Marie Lair. According to the planchette story, Marie was a French nun who left her religious order and travelled to England to marry a member of the Waldegrave family, the owners of Borley's 17th century manor house, Borley Hall. She was said to have been murdered in an older building on the site of the rectory, and her body either burned in the cellar or thrown into a disused well. The wall writings were alleged to be her pleas for help. One read, "Marianne, please help me get out." The second spirit to be contacted identified himself as Sunek Samares and claimed that he would set fire to the rectory at 9 o'clock that night on the 27th of March 1930.
I gotta apologize because I have no idea what's going on in this picture. This is this man's picture, but I left it in. I have no idea. I just know that I don't like it. So
like he's kissing the devil's arse, as they say.
Like avert your eyes.
38. He also said at that time...
Wait a minute. Who is it?
It was a thing in witchcraft, I think.
Okay.
There was a ceremony where you had to kiss the devil's backside in order to get powers.
Well, they can keep those powers.
So they said.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine why use that picture. It must be, I don't know. It's out of my, I don't know. But what's going on?
It's called the Osculum Infam, or Infamy. It's the name of a witch's supposed ritual greeting upon meeting the devil. The name means the shameful kiss, or the kiss of shame, since it involved kissing the devil's anus. And no, I'm not making it up. It's let me show you here.
Oh my gosh. Look.
If you can see that or not, but
look.
There's kind of the same. Yeah, you can't see it.
Yep.
If you look up Osculum, Osculum, Infam or Infamy, Infame, it's the act of greeting the devil by kissing his ass.
I can't imagine what those powers would be that would want you to do something like that. My God.
There's a few people that I wouldn't mind telling that to.
Kiss the devil's ass?
Or mine.
We learn something every Monday, don't we, Steve? Good Lord. Here we go. We're almost done with this. It's about another minute, guys.
That he would set fire to the rectory at 9 o'clock that night on the 27th of March 1938. He also said at that time that the bones of a murdered person would be revealed.
I love this part. This is me.
And Jeanette, that's true. That's a fact in the Library of Congress. That's not a smart remark to me. That's a true ritual.
Oh
from
my
back
goodness.
in the day, the witch finder general and things like that. Now, where they actually did it, I don't know, but they were accused
My
of doing
goodness.
that.
Yep, hard no, Sean says. And somebody was,
Make sure we don't get
yep, that's it right there.
banned for this, but there's another
Oh my God, they're lining up to
picture.
do it. Oh my gosh.
That was from
There's a joke in there
Francesco
somewhere.
Maria Guazzo's Compendium Maleficarium, 1608. So it's not anything new. Been kissing the
Wow.
devil's ass for a long time.
I've never, I mean, in all of my, boy, I'll tell you what we learn on a Monday. I knew it, I left that in there for a reason. I had no idea. I was just, going to a certain point where he was going to tell the story and I could continue it with something else. And then I'm really looking at it. I'm going, what the hell is, because I'm looking a little on my phone. I'm doing all this on my phone. And I'm going, what the hell is that? And what the hell is right? So, yeah, it did look like a woodcut print, and it sure did. Another woodcut, yep. Let's see here. I think we got everything. Yeah, it was pretty gross. Yep. So let's just not do that. Okay. So to go with that, I found, this was my little surprise. I was a little disappointed I couldn't do more on the time on this, but I grabbed what I could. If you want to see the whole video, now they're putting it up, taking it down, putting it up, taking it down. I don't know if, the college or whatever has it, but I grabbed you guys a piece of it. Now, you got to imagine, this is 1935-ish, somewhere around in there. I don't have an exact date, but here's a little treat of Mr. Harry Price himself, some found footage. I guess it has to be lost before it's found, but that's what they called it, from the BBC, from the college, that they put out a little thing here. So you get to see Harry Price, well, not alive and well, but as he portrayed here. So this one, I grabbed it for you, Steve, because I know this is just a treat, right? Here we go.
What is psychical research? A popular opinion says that it means going to seances, holding hands in the dark, singing hymns, and perhaps getting in touch with your dead relatives. But in this, popular opinion is only partly correct, because it is confusing a psychical research with a spiritualism. A psychical research is a science, and is rapidly becoming an exact science. Its object is to ascertain by exact experimental methods how far the alleged phenomena of the seance room can be brought into line with normality. These phenomena, which are produced by people who claim abnormal powers and who call themselves mediums, can be divided into physical and mental. The mental includes clairvoyance, psychometry, the direct voice which spirits are supposed to produce at seances, and similar manifestations. The physical phenomena includes telekinesis, or the abnormal movement of objects without physical contact, the poltergeist phenomena you read about in connection with haunted houses, and similar manifestations. There is an idea that the study of alleged abnormal phenomena is quite modern, but that is not the case. People have been interested in psychic phenomena from the very earliest times, and even the literature of the subject is very old. In our research library of some 12,000 volumes, we have books going back right to the 16th century. I'll show you one or two. For instance, here is one here written by Louis Levata. It is called Of Ghosts and Spirits Walking by Night, and this must be the very first book printed in English which deals with survival as we know it today. I'll show you another one. Here is one written by Oliver Goldsmith and deals with the famous Cock Lane ghost. The extraordinary part of this book is that it describes a seance in a girl's bedroom exactly as if it might have been written yesterday. But modern research proceeds on vastly different lines to what it did in the 16th century. We now require a fully equipped...
Well, there you go. How about that? So we had him. Now, the whole thing, if you can catch it, is on YouTube. Just look up Harry Price, BBC, and it should pop up if they're, but like I said, they're banging it back and forth, and I grabbed a little piece of it while I could because I thought it would be great to get it from his own words. Anything he say there surprise you, Steve?
Not really. I mean, he seemed a little over the top and a little bit of a showman, but I guess that's just inherent in him. With whatever he'd done, I think he would have been that way. But I think he believed in his research. He believed what he was doing, even if he did make things a little more exciting than they necessarily were.
Well, you think about the time, and you think about now. Somebody in here, I think it was it possibly was Mairead. It might have been UK. I'm sorry, I forgot the whole moniker there, but they were saying how they don't exaggerate a lot of stuff. They take it as it is, probably in the same way that we were looking at last Monday, where they told the whole story and the history and, you know, the mystery of the whole thing, you know. And I think it had that whole, with Harry Price, he had that whole vaudeville kind of feel to me, which was prevalent at the time. So everything was bigger than life. Everything that was, you know, even when Harry Houdini performed, everything was bigger than life. It was showmanship. And I think he kind of put that forward, you know. But what a treat to see a little clip of that, those old newsreels. I love watching some of those, you know. They're really cool. So there you go. That's that one. Now, the next one I've got, I love the books, too. They was pulling out the books. Now, on the rest of that video, if they'll let you see it on YouTube, like I said, just look up Harry Price. He does go over a couple of his things in the laboratory. It's extremely interesting, but for some reason, the data wouldn't let me load it regular, so I had to cut it down and load it that way, just so you could see a piece of it. But you can watch the whole thing. I think the whole thing runs almost like 45 minutes, so you get a big treat if you want to get some more Harry Price there. So the next one that I have is, let's see here. All right. So basically the story is, after the Smiths, like we just saw in the first video, the Smiths had enough, and they moved out. You know what happened to them. They wound up, you know, they lost the florist and all this other stuff, and the poor, you know, priest husband or father or whatever you want, rector, they're gone. All right. So the thing about Mary Ann was they were saying that she was causing a lot of the stuff there because the pastor was writing a journal. So she would do little things. She was bored, and she would do little things and say, there was rocks under my pillow today. Put this in your journal. This happened today. Put it in your journal. The thing that was happening to her, though, is she said that she was really seeing the nun a lot, and the nun was kind of connecting with her. Maybe they were around the same age. This makes sense to me. The energy, I think that Mary Ann was probably lovelorn. I mean, she seemed like she loved real quick and left. Boom, boom, boom. So she was easily distracted and probably very unfulfilled as a young woman and looking for excitement and love. And she was messing around with somebody right there, like a groundskeeper or something. Maybe the nun picked up on that energy, Steve, and connected to her and made more of a contact with her. It's highly possible. It's just a thought. But one of the things that was happening with her was the writings on the wall. And at one point, they lightly touched it on the last video, but at one point, she said that the nun was writing to her on the wall, and it said something like, help me get out, light a candle, do mass, say prayers, and it would just straggle off. And Mary Ann grabbed a pencil one day and wrote on there, "I can't understand you. Can you be more clear?" Wrote it on the wall. And then the nun answered her back after that. And that was one thing you hear a lot of being talked about, the writings on the wall. They also say that Harry Price faked that. But that happened 3 years before Harry ever got there. So there's, just like I said, facts and, from what we can pull up. Of course, everything at this point is history, and you're kind of falling victim to the information you can find and putting it together just like any story. But he went in and they couldn't find a rector right away. So when they moved out, the Smiths moved out, Harry basically rented it for a year, and he put out, as Steve said, in his bombastic way, he made sure that everybody knew about it. He put out an ad in the paper and out in Hollywood, California as well, to invite any of the elite there, the rich and famous, the stars, if they wanted to come and spend time there to help him investigate. All of the local colleges and, further out, some of the Ivy League colleges here. He had at any time 48 people in that place. Back and forth. Some stayed a weekend, some a night, some for like a month. And everybody got different readings on that. Now, do you know anything about the investigation, Steve, and what happened there? What you heard?
I don't, as far as what the outcomes and stuff were.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that it was an ongoing thing. And at one time, anybody who had an interest in that type of research at the time, paranormal research or whatever, the psychical research as they call it then, attended those meetings. There were like Hollywood type people, there were lay people, there were a little bit of everything. Anybody that had an interest in it was welcome to come. So that kind of points away from him doing trickery, because I think with that many people coming in and out and stuff, that he would have gotten caught on to a lot easier if he was faking everything. I'm not saying he didn't fake or recreate, as he put it, some things. Some things were recreations of actual events. Now, they leave that part out in some of the documentaries, but
yeah, like you said, it went
spirit
back and forth.
slates and some of that stuff, that was magic tricks that people like Harry Houdini have been doing for years. The Great Thurston. Some of those use the spirit slates regularly. Though you can still buy those today. They're gimmicked, and you know exactly what it's going to say in there when you open them back up, because you're the one that wrote it.
It's something else, man. It just is, there was just so much going on. And yeah, what if the students were faking it? Absolutely. To me, we know as, people that have been on paranormal investigations and stuff like that, the less you have, the better. You don't want people all over the place, because then you have to make where everybody is.
When you've got just people from all walks of life trampling around there's somebody going to try to trip you up, either just for their own amusement or to expose you as a fraud to everybody else. They're going to say, well, that didn't really happen. I was the one that made the bell ring, and he thought it was a spirit. So I think that's where he kind of fell down on his research, was opening it too wide to too many different people.
Exactly. That theatrics kind of got him, and you don't really know what was in his mind, and we can only guess at this point. But, he wanted to get, of course, he's getting ridiculed in so many things. He went through it like a scientific way in his mind. And now was his chance to save his name. Now, he wrote 2 books about it. I'm sure you can still get them. I don't think that, if they're out of print, you can always get an older copy. But he did write 2 books on the Borley. And Harry Price was, we're still talking about him today. So there's that, right? So the next one I have is the other guy. Now, I'll tell you what. I really love me some Peter Underwood. He wasn't easily swayed. I've seen documentaries where he said that he really, at the time of the 70s of this BBC documentary, it was in the 70s, I believe. I could be wrong. But he was saying that in his mind, where he was at the time, he believed that most ghosts were repeat like a string theory, or, the stone tape theory, I meant to say, I'm sorry. That kind of thing, where at the right time, in the right place, in the right person, they could reappear for a moment or something like that. He was studying at the time he did the documentary about really getting into other things and really starting to feel that they could also be intelligent. They could also be the essence of a human being that once lived and is now here. Or he never used the word stuck, but I think he used the word remains or something like that. He remained. But so here he is. If you've never heard about Peter Underwood, he was the president of the Ghost Club for many years in the UK. Very distinguished gentleman. Wonderful, wonderful stories he would tell, not only about his own investigations, but stories that were his favorites. And he was also had a radio show. He had a radio program, and he would do wonderful things. And I'm going to play a little one of those for you, one of my favorites. But I've talked about him often on this podcast because he was, like Steve said in the beginning, one of these the trailblazers. These were the first time ghost hunters. The term ghost hunter was used was Price and Underwood. So without further ado on this one, I believe this one is Peter Underwood. Let's see. How much do you know about Peter Underwood before you started getting into this, Steve? Just heard him like Keel and, a little bit.
Yeah, heard the name and saw little bits and pieces of his research show up in other people's books and research. Mm-hmm. But he's oft quoted and well respected,
yes,
as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. And just, a dapper man. I think it's so important to get a chance to see him in his own words and stuff, just like Harry Price, because you can kind of get a little bit when you see him like that, Mm-hmm. And welcome into everybody who's coming in. Cassie's just joined us, and I believe Jeanette and Susan Woodcarver's here, and the lovely Laura. Thank you, everybody. And keep your eyes on the chat tonight, mods. We actually had a fence jumper in here last night, and we got him really quick. So just hang on. And Connor's here. Hey, what's up, Connor? How you doing, honey? All right. So here we go on this one. And this is going to show you a little bit of Borley too, which is great. I love the song so much. It's an old detective walking in the rain, collar up, hat down, smoking a cigarette. I can see it. There he is, Peter Underwood.
In 1863, a rectory was built here, and just about every strange phenomena have been reported over the years. So, Peter Underwood, you are president of the Ghost Club in England, which makes you one of the leading ghost hunters. And here we are at Borley Rectory, one of the most haunted houses in the country. Is that right?
Well, yes, but we're not actually at Borley Rectory, because Borley Rectory stood over there and is no longer there. But I'm quite convinced, beyond any shadow of doubt, that the house that stood just across the road was and fully lived up to its name as the most haunted house in England.
Why are you convinced?
The accumulation of evidence over the years is absolutely shattering. It all began with a legend, and of course the most familiar aspect of the haunting is a ghost nun, which has been seen for something like, nearly 100 years. One of the rectors even bricked up one of the windows because he said the phantom nun looked in at him having his breakfast. But over the years, phantom figures have been seen, footsteps have been heard, solid, heavy footsteps on floorboards. Messages have been scribbled on the walls and on pieces of paper, apparently from a French nun asking for light, mass and prayers. Bones have been found, 2 skulls have been found. One was buried in the churchyard. The other...
Were they identified as women or female? Or?
One of them was identified as a young female, and it's rather interesting because a dental surgeon discovered that there was a deep-seated abscess in the jawbone, and nearly all the people who have reported seeing the nun have said that she appeared sad-faced, unhappy, and of course with the deep-seated abscess she would indeed.
So really we're talking about the ghost of a nun with toothache.
That's what it sounds like, yes. But putting all that on one side, the fact remains you've got the incumbencies of 4 rectors from 1863 rather, until 1935. 4 rectors, their families, wives, many friends and relatives, all of whom assert that they heard, saw and felt things which they can't explain. And I think the cumulative evidence is absolutely overwhelming that this was indeed the most haunted house in England. It was in 1937 that when the Smiths were here, Smith had recently come to England from India, and he just walked into this and he wondered what was happening. He saw a figure, he saw a phantom coach, his lights suddenly blared up, bells rang. He didn't know what to do, and he wrote to the national paper, and they sent down Harry Price, who was the leading psychic investigator at that time. And of course he was fascinated once he heard the story and started making inquiries. The ecclesiastical authorities decided that the house was no longer suitable for a rector to live in, and Price decided to rent it. And he rented the place for a year, arranged independent investigators who again reported identical phenomena: footsteps, lights, noises, bell ringing, and so on. And then the place was sold privately to a Crackling Grigson, and while he owned it, a somewhat mysterious fire took place and the place was gutted. But the interesting thing is that once the rectory was destroyed and there was no building on the site, then the entities apparently transferred their activities to the church, where visiting rectors have seen figures, have heard noises. Many visitors have reported footsteps following them up the church path inside the church itself.
At Epping, working on the M11 motorway extension, is one of Borley's most remarkable witnesses. Mr. Crewe Hollingsworth and a team of investigators taped recordings in the church and spent many nights observing the rectory grounds.
I got a team together with Roy Potter, and we did actually on the site of the rectory. We concentrated mostly.
Have you seen anything there?
Oh yes, in June, I can't remember the exact date, but in June we sighted the nun.
You did?
Oh yes, two of us.
What time of day?
I would say somewhere about 1:45 in the morning it was. It was absolutely full moon. And first of all, we couldn't really, we were astonished. But when we saw this apparition go through bushes and through railings and across a trench, we knew we were really onto something. So we had her for observation actually 11 minutes. And I had a
How long?
11 minutes.
You watched a ghost for 11 minutes?
11 minutes, exactly. Well, I wouldn't say exactly, but around about 11 minutes. 9 to 11 minutes. Now, this, I had a wonderful view of her because she came towards me and then she stood still for some time and I was able to have a good look at the nun. She actually started on the original old nun's walk, which is in the back garden of some people's bungalow. And she disappeared in the back part of their bungalow, and then she reappeared and came across into the rectory part. Actually, she finished up behind the rectory and disappeared in some shrubs there. The nun, when she's looking at you, she's not seeing you at all. She's not seeing you. Even when she was supposed to stand in the old days of Harry Price, stand looking in the rectory window, she's not seeing the rectory. She's in her own period. She is seeing something that's there in her period. And that's why she appeared about a foot from the ground, which I...
She wasn't on the ground?
Well, she was a foot above it. Now, this was due, I'm sure, to the original level. Since then, the ground has sunk. So I would say she was at the original level in her
Pretty
period.
weird experience you're telling me about.
Oh, well...
A woman gliding along a foot above the ground for 10 minutes.
Well, it may seem absurd to you, but I'm going by what I saw. And this has, of course, been substantiated by my chief investigator, who is a very hard-headed person, doesn't believe in this type of thing. In fact, her reaction was to throw a brick.
Throw a brick?
Yes,
At her?
Yes, and went right through, actually.
That's a nice thing to do.
Well, no, I think it was a good thing to do, because it actually proved that it was nothing fake. Actually, I got it.
Look about as excited in both pictures.
Yup. I just love this song so much. This song is called Black Cat. It's on the YouTube audio library, and it is by Aaron Carey, I believe. I wrote it in one of the videos. Just fantastic. I mean, I can really see the old detective, like the Mike Hammer, pulling up the collar, pulling down the old fedora, smoking a cigarette in the rain, and just walking off down a dark alley. It's just a beautiful song. But there you go. What do you think? I left that one in there. That's Peter Underwood, and they are going to go into what is now the church. As he explained, the rectory is gone. It burnt down. And do you remember what happened with the burning down, Steve?
I remember that there was all kinds of things happened there, and even in the rubble, there's a picture that I believe Harry Price claimed to have made where you see a brick flying through the air. He caught the picture midair, which with cameras and things they were back then, that would have been extremely hard to fake, I think, unless you had somebody just off camera throwing bricks and you got one in a shot. But it looked more levitating than flying. But they claimed there was all kinds of things going on while it was burning. There was I think a ghost of a priest or a nun or something that was observed in the flames.
Yes.
And then after it was reduced to rubble, they tore the rest of it down, and then that's where the bricks and things were flying about. So it appeared that whatever it was on the grounds itself, or maybe in the very components that made up the rectory, not just the building itself. Who knows? But it's frightening. I hope you have some of that stuff coming up.
It's basically, well, I kind of do. Do you remember our friend, the butt kisser guy? Supposedly he was the one who came through the Ouija during the seance. I don't want to say Ouija board. I know there was some Ouija board seances, and then there was just some seances, automatic writing. There was all kind of stuff.
The table tipping or table tapping too.
Right. And right in the last part, before Price left there, they got like huge response in this seance. Now, whether it chose at that time to present itself because they knew everybody was leaving and now was going to be the time it was going to speak, but it came through. And it said that it was responsible for multiple things there, that it was haunting the grounds before it ever, because this is kind of like what we were talking about last night and many other shows about something that's more ancient. You know what I mean? More that kind of feel. And it said that 1 year from tonight, and I forget the date, I have the date, it was February, whatever, 1 year to the day, it would burn down the rectory. And 1 year to the day, the rectory burnt down. And here is a picture that was in the paper. If I could pull it up and find it. Where is it? It's up here. Here we go. This was a picture there in the paper. Sorry about the quality, but like I said, it's a newspaper from back in the day. It says, after the fire on February 27th, 1939. So it was 1 year to the day. And I think he even gave a time at 9 o'clock. And I haven't been able to find anything. Did it burn down at 9 p.m.? But it says, which was the beginning of the end of the house built in 1863. A half-brick crashed through the glass veranda. And that's the one you were just talking about, Steve. The picture, it's showing the veranda on one occasion. Mr. Price and others entered. So you see the front there. And the famous blue room that you hear them talking about big time in the movies and stuff like that. It says the blue room is center, first floor, and to the left, the window in which mysterious lights appeared. There was also a window that kind of was like I don't know if it was the blue room where they were eating or if it was like a kitchenette off the side. It's such a big house, right? Yeah. But one of the rectors there actually bricked up the window because he said that there was a young girl who would stand outside the window when they ate breakfast and screamed. So he bricked up the window, and it was
that would be annoying. You're trying to eat breakfast and there's somebody screaming through the window at you.
Absolutely.
Let's go. I need to step away for just a minute. I'll be right back.
Sure, honey. Go ahead. So that seems to be the thing. That's the most, to me, that one piece. Sometimes there's that one piece of evidence that you just kind of like, what? I mean, a year later now, that's not to say that somebody didn't go there and do it to make the story. Of course that could happen. I don't know how many witnesses were there when it went on fire, because at the time, a man, I forget the guy's name, but he bought it after Harry Price had rented it. So when his time was up, this man went in and bought it, and he was going to make it very much like, think of a modern day Zach Bagans' Demon House. And he was going to make all kind of money on it, and he was going to really amp up the advertising and put stuff in the papers. He just thought that Harry Price had a great idea, and he was gonna make lots of money on it. And about 4 months later, it burnt to the ground. It stood till 1943, when it was such a wreck that they turned it under, and that's when they started doing like some archaeology. I can't say the word, digs for artifacts. I get tripped up on archaeological. There we go. So they did have colleges come in and look for things, and they found stuff. They found, of course, bones and things like that. Let's just say entity at this point that spoke and said that he was going to burn down the house, also said that there would be a body of a murder victim that would be unearthed not long after. They did find bones, many full skeletal bones, but then again, you're in a church, and then you've got graveyards and stuff. It's hard to say. But they did find bones. Now, whether they were of a murder victim or not, I do not know. I think it was the second lady, the second family we talked about, the Smiths, I think it was. I could be wrong, could be the Foyers. But found a head, a skull, a human skull, wrapped in a paper bag, stuck in one of the cabinets in the rectory. And they had a ceremony, her and her husband. Of course, he was a pastor, and so they had a ceremony and buried it and all kinds of stuff like that. So who's to say? I don't know. Where are you guys sitting right now? Do you think, both of them saying that, you had kind of both of their ideas on why they thought it was most haunted house? I mean, you've got the carriage with the headless, I guess driver, right? Going through. Now, this carriage wouldn't just go down, through the grounds. It would go through the house. It would go down the hallways. They would have multiple walking, and banging and things like that. Now, that was at the rectory. After the rectory burnt, everything across the street where you saw Peter Underwood and the man going in, that was the church. And the church started amping up. So yes, Aunt Edna, I believe that when they were upscunged, yes, they can. No, it wasn't a screaming skull. As far as I know, Glenn. Maybe it could. I don't know. But that's the skull they were talking about, that they found the abscess tooth. And they're thinking, Peter Underwood was thinking that skull actually belonged to the nun. That's his thoughts. I don't know how he got to that, but there you go. I don't know how much DNA. I know they were doing carbon testing and stuff back then in the 70s. I don't know. I don't know what they found out since. But that was him putting it together, that she was really sad. I really think that she kind of connected to Marianne a little bit, as I described. It's very possible. They were both probably around the same age. I mean, nuns, if they were going in, they went in young. Sometimes they went in because, they got pregnant and their parents sent them away in shame to go be raised by the nuns, and then they adopted the children, and a lot of times the girl stayed in that. She was looking for a dentist. It's possible. But again, just my theory on everything I've read on it and learned about it, just seemed that each family had something. Of course, the first guy, that built it, the first one that built it was Borley, or Borel. It was something like that. I mean, that's why it was called Borley. And the pastor that had the 14 kids, and then all the illegitimate kids around town died of syphilis. There's so much going on. I mean, that's a lot of kids. That's a lot of activity. That's a lot of sneaking around and doing dirty deeds, backdoor stuff. I don't know. I don't know if that could bring on something, a pastor acting like that. I don't know. All these are factors in this. But the church now, that's basically just across the street, across the way, there's like in between where the rectory was and the church is, there's this beautiful garden path. You saw all the shaped shrubbery and and hedges and stuff. And there's a walk there that they call the nun's walk, and that's where you usually see the nun walking. You often see her, she would come in the house a lot when Marianne was there. Also with the group before that, the lady before that. So maybe just, connected to that energy. I don't know. She very rarely appeared to men in the house. Outside she did. More people saw her outside. Now this gentleman you just saw on the tape, he was there as a construction worker. They were working on a connection to something. I don't know if it's the church or someplace else. And he actually said that he saw her, him and his crew, and the other guy that was there who was a skeptic, 11 minutes, 9 to 11 minutes. And I don't know about the number 10. I don't think it holds any significance, but it's possible. But that's a long time. That's got to be one of the longest of just seeing a ghost. Usually it's very quick, or it's just a spirit, I think that's why they call it almost spirited away, because it's just so quick. It's a glimpse. It's a blink in time, And the whole thing, as he told it, I love the idea of walking above the ground. Now, we've heard this in many stories. Okay, I know I have. I love the theory that he's saying she's walking about a foot above the ground because the ground has sunk. If that's the case, then I'm guessing I would say that she's probably not, at that point in time, was an intelligent haunting, but a replay. Very much like the Roman soldiers story, ghost story that's very famous. I did it on episode 1, Truly Ghostly. And that young man who saw the Roman, basically a whole regiment of Romans coming through, they were also walking about a foot and a half off the ground. Again, their theory was that the Roman road that went through there would have been lower to the land that's up high now. I don't know. It's a great theory. I think it's something to keep in mind. But I've heard from mediums a lot of times, they say sometimes spirits that are visiting, now this is so interesting, spirits that are visiting, not ghosts that are stuck or earthbound, that they often appear about a foot off the ground. I said, why? And they said, because they're vibrating right about here. And she went like this. And I've heard others tell me the same. Like I say here on the show all the time, much wiser than I'll ever be, people telling me the same thing at different times. So that's just something I would take away from that little clip and think about it and put it in your other, when you hear another ghost story and people are describing it that way. Ask yourself what you think. Do you think it's a replay and they're just walking? Someone else mentioned too, I think it was UK, that if you see a ghost passing through a wall, a lot of times that's a residual because they're going through a door that used to be there. So if you see them and they're just repeating that same thing over and over again, like on a loop, I think that holds a lot of water. I really do. As far as, is that the only time that can happen? I would say no. I think this is a subject that there's just not too many absolutes. I don't know what do you guys think about all of that? What are your thoughts? Do you think that it's, in most cases, if they're appearing in that way and they're acting very much like this man said that when he saw it, his idea was, she's not seeing you. She's not seeing this. She's in her own place. So she has her own vision. We've heard that in many ghost stories where they're seeing their reality. There was a great ghost story, fantastic medium, going back to try to figure out what happened in an older haunting. And the place is a garage storage place kind of now. And at the time of these ghosts were living, it was a factory, and it was a sewing factory back late 1800s, late 1880, 1890ish, up into the the early 1910s. This was one of those factories in New York that lots of child labor, lots of long hours. You had all the reasons that we have safety measures now and child labor laws and things like that, which, no laws are really being, no laws are being kept. It's kind of like lawless right now, but they were put in place for that reason. Now, this young boy that this medium was able to pick up right away had been seen by the owner's son. So basically, the owner's son was about 8 or 9, and he sees him talking. He brings him to work to pick up some things, and he's sitting at a desk, and he's like talking to somebody. So who are you talking to? And he just said that little boy, you don't see him. And he says he's got a hat. I want to get a hat like his. It was such a neat hat. And he said, describe the hat to me. And he said it was very much like we would consider the riding caps with the little small brim and, just kind of flat. And it seemed to me that a lot of kids back then wore that type of hat in that 1890s era. Well, that's what prompted the guy to get somebody, because he had a lot of complaints. Just telling a quick ghost story. So while the medium was there, the first thing she picked up on was the little boy, and he said, it's time to go home. The first thing he said to her broke my heart. It's time to go home. We can't stay. My mom has fallen asleep, and it's time for us to go home. Well, after talking to this little boy and trying to describe to him that he's not in the factory anymore, that his mom is in the light. I mean, they stayed and they helped this little guy. It took hours to just talk to him and get it all out. His mother had died at the sewing machine. They just pushed her body away onto the floor and put another person in front of it. Forgot all about the fact that her little boy was there working in another room. And he did not go home. He was not leaving without his mother. And he died hiding in that factory of starvation.
Wow.
And hypothermia. It got so cold at night.
The type of hat you're describing, they called it a newsboy hat.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, that's another one where it was so powerful that this little boy kept seeing. He just couldn't find his mother. He would go to the backs of the people that he saw, and none of them was his mother. And it was horrifying. And then the mom, the medium actually connected with the mom, and, she had been coming back to try to get him. So many stories I hear like this. He just couldn't see her because he was trapped in that, in that veil of his own vision. Incredible. But there's another depths to ghost. It's not an easy thing. You know what I mean? But there's that one. That's Peter Underwood of Borley. So you got to see a little bit of Borley. So how about a little Peter Underwood ghost story? What do you think about that? This is a little quick, a little 2-minute. He was very quick and to the point, I know it is awful, Melissa. It's good to see you in here. We hadn't seen you. I'm so glad you're here. If I missed anybody, we love having you. We just absolutely love this chat and everybody here. Here we go. Let's see what Peter Underwood's got to say. Now, I want to tell you this, Ghost Watch. If you put on, if you like these little shorties, and a lot of them are fine for kids too, so if you like to listen in the car, with the kids in the car, you can listen to all of Peter Underwood's stuff. He's got a whole channel that his son runs, and the radio show that he did was called Ghost Watch. So here you go, Peter Underwood and Ghost Watch.
Mrs. Smith, VC Wall, your husband contacted my editor?
Wait, sorry, wrong one. You'll see that one in a second. Let's try again. There he is.
Peter Underwood's Ghost Watch.
That's just so creepy sound.
I love it.
A few years ago, I spent a night at Newark Park in Gloucestershire. A house where strange rustling sounds, as though a person dressed in trading clothes was moving around, had been reported many times. Fearful visitors had also heard disembodied voices. Clear and distinct footsteps echoed along deserted passageways. The sound of rattling chains was reported, and there was talk of an unnatural coldness. I had gone there with other investigators to ghost watch. That first night we concentrated on a staircase landing where the rustling and voices had been heard from time to time for over 70 years. In half an hour, 4 members of our team heard it. We waited for voices, but no luck. We decided to sit again in the same place, and this time take with us recording equipment, together with a camera loaded with infrared film that takes photographs in darkness. We hoped that even if we saw nothing, the camera might pick up whatever might be there. The recorder was running, the camera read. Next day we ran the tape through, just in case the recorder had picked up anything we hadn't heard. There were 2 faint but distinct voices on the tape. A man's voice said, "It's looking," and a woman's, "It's looking at us." Could they have been talking about the camera lens pointing at them? It's a pity we didn't take any pictures. Those voices remain a mystery and a lasting reminder of our ghost hunt in the Cotswolds. I'm Peter Underwood. I'll be back on Ghost Watch soon.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. That's what you get with Peter Underwood. You're going to get a story. You're going to get like an old radio show. Exactly, Glenn. That's exactly what it is.
My only problem with it is it's too short. Just getting into it, and then I'll see you next time.
Yeah.
It was their version of TikTok.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. And he's got some longer ones on there too. That was one of my favorites because it also tells of how he discovered, like I said, you'll see him in some of the older interviews in the 70s where he's just really reluctant to say, okay, they're dead people coming back to talk to us. After he pushed through that a little bit, he was a little bit more, they were very guarded in what they said. You know what I mean? He was a little bit more into the whole thing where he's like, yeah, there's something going on here. I believe that, he didn't call it intelligent hauntings. He called it hauntings by, people that are coming back to say something, basically. And that was one of the stories because they had got these clear EVPs that are looking at the cameras and going, they're looking at us. It's crazy. And a man and a woman.
Crazy.
So good.
Did you see his equipment? Looking at us.
Yeah.
Like they didn't really know what it was, but it was looking at them.
There's so many levels in that story, just how he investigated. I love the picture of him going up the stairs with his suitcase. It was all his glory. He's like so excited. Here I come to check out, tell you what's going on. They were just amazing. You saw his table there of all his ghost gear. And, he was a little bit more later on, in the 70s and stuff. He could use a lot more than what Harry Price had. And it's just, it's great. It's a pity we didn't take any pictures. No, he does another one. He's got the rest of I only did half of the BBC documentary. You can find it. Just do Borley and Peter Underwood. And it's about an hour and a half, BBC documentary. You saw the first half. The second half, they take you inside the church. And they're actually showing you some EVPs. He's got about 3 or 4 EVPs he got. And how they sat there, just like Gray, just like now. The whole thing is like 3 people sitting in this church with all the lights off and just sitting and waiting. Just sitting and waiting. And you can hear them talking. They saw some lights forming in the curtains, like little balls of light that would come like toward them and then move away. And you can hear them talking about it. There's no video. It's just all on tape. And then he's got a couple of EVPs where they sit there and they try to figure out, sounds like a door latch opening. And then in that church, there's a big old heavy wooden door with the big latches. They're trying to figure out where this sound came from. They can't figure it out. So it's very interesting, especially for investigators, to go back and watch that. And it's on YouTube. It's just Peter Underwood, Borley, YouTube, and you'll see it.
A lot of his books are available on Amazon in Kindle format, and they're really cheap. They're like $2.99.
So
I'm thinking they're probably in the public domain. and somebody's re-released them. But if you just put in Peter Underwood in the Kindle store, there's a dozen books in there probably, and they're all good. I've read a lot of them.
Have you? I showed just a few. I thought it was really cool to show his, his range, because he wrote, on Karloff. He wrote a book on Karloff. He wrote a book, The Vampire's Bedside Companion.
The Ghost Hunter's Guide Illustrated, Dictionary of the Supernatural, Peter Underwood's Ghosts and Haunted Places, Haunted London, Nights in Haunted Houses, The Complete Book of Dowsing and Divining, Gazetteer of British, Scottish, and Irish Ghosts, Where the Ghosts Walk, Ghosts of Cornwall, Gazetteer of British Ghosts, The Ghosts of Borley, Ghosts of Kent, just on and
Keep
on and on.
going.
There's
so many.
Very, very prolific.
I would love to do, the one I want to read is Ghosts and How to See Them. I want to know what in the world he's talking about in there. But and he's a cheeky monkey, because he can keep a straight face and tell a little joke, Yeah. And somebody was saying that the whole beard and the whole look and the dapper with the, either it was a tie
he had a
and
great sartorial sense. Even in that one video there, he's wearing like that Norfolk jacket, which is a hunter's jacket, like the pheasant hunters.
Yes.
And back then, when you went hunting, you dressed up. You wore a hat. You wore a tweed suit. The boots with the pants tucked down, jodhpurs or whatever you want to call it. You dressed up even to go out in the bush.
I just love
very
it.
Dapper gentleman.
I love the whole night. I love the music. Like I said, that's Black Cat. I try to go in and get music that matches. I know when we did the Tennessee one, I got so lucky. I must have looked for that music for an hour, listening to songs. Nope. Because it matters to me to get you guys in the right mood. And I thought that one did.
Sets the mood and can make or break a video clip. I agree.
And it means a lot. And, we were talking to Dylan a couple weeks ago, and just really saying how much work really goes into doing editing, even little videotapes and stuff, and sometimes YouTube will go, nope, and kick it back out. And I'm like, what are you doing? I got 20 minutes before the show. It's like that Harry Price one. I had to do that 4 times just to get StreamYard.
That happens a lot on Missing Persons and Mysteries. It can take hours to edit, a 10-minute video. And then there'll be some little something in there that YouTube doesn't like, or that somebody else, even if it's not theirs, will still try to put a claim on it. And a lot of times what happens, we license our stock footage from a company. Somebody else will license the same stock footage, and then the YouTube algorithm will say, hey, somebody's using the video that's in your video. But it's not theirs to put a copyright claim on, but they'll do it anyway. There's things that get broken sometimes on YouTube. The algorithm's not as smart as it thinks it is.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I've had it in there where I'm asking them, what part of this don't you like? And it wasn't what I thought it was. It was a little piece of music that was behind a video, or playing on a radio in the background somewhere, or something.
And that's what gets me. They can put a claim on 2 seconds of audio, yet they can claim the whole video and get the royalties for the entire thing, even for just that little snippet of something in there.
And I'll tell you, I'll make a decision. For the Cabin 22s I did,
I'll just mute it out. I'm not going to give them any money.
You can mute it out. I just shut off the monetization for it, because it was more important for you, the listener, to have that experience with that, with whatever that was. And I can do without the 42 cents I'm going to make on that video. It's like, I'd rather you have so that's why I keep saying, if you want to help out, you can do the super chat, or you can do a PayPal when you want. I mean, gosh, it doesn't matter to me. It helps me out. And I thank Darlene again for dropping the PayPal for me. You really helped me out this month. I appreciate it so much. But it means most to me and Steve when we tell the story is that you enjoy the story, that you got the music. We took you away somewhere. Storytelling and sharing things like this, it's a huge deal. And hopefully this will be out there for a while. After I'm gone, people can look at this and maybe find an answer to something. Or that thing about the floating. Did you hear us talking about the floating above? Appearing like a foot above the ground. Did you hear us talking about that? What is your take on that, Steve? Because I know we've talked about it before.
Whatever the residual or whatever the haunting is there, that's where it was then. Like the guy that in the UK that had Roman soldiers marching through his basement. He later found that the old road through the area, the Appian Way that ran through there during Roman times, that was the level that it was at. The house had been built up several layers on the ground there, several houses probably, but where they were marching in the basement, that was the road level that used to go through there. And you hear that a lot of times about a place that's been remodeled. Ghosts will be seen going through a wall or whatever. Most likely at one time there was a door there.
Yeah.
I used to live in a house where we would hear a door slam in the kitchen where there was no door to slam. There was only a slider in there. And I asked the owner of the house one time when he was over there doing something, I said, do you ever hear, was there ever a door here in the kitchen? And he said, you've heard it too, haven't you? I was just shocked. And he said, yeah. He said, right there where that window is, that used to be a door. We took the door out, put in a window, and then put in a sliding glass door. And he said a lot of times at night, when my wife and I lived here, we would hear that door slam in the kitchen even after it wasn't there anymore. So stuff like that happens. Sometimes just a little history of the place will give away the circumstances, if not what the haunting is all about.
Absolutely. And I think that's the whole story about tonight. It's sometimes we've gotten in, and a lot of people here, I'm not talking about the listeners, but sometimes people will get to the point where they're just headline readers. And you don't really get into the story. And then you don't look at who wrote the story and why. Like we were talking about that last night with The Haunting. Both of, I think at least 3 different daughters I've heard give interviews on that haunting. And they mentioned the reporter that just kept putting out garbage that wasn't true. Like the demon was there first day and, all this other. And she's like, no, it built and built and built and built, And maybe it was dormant. Who knows? I mean, we're guessing. It's all guesses and theory. But she wanted to make sure that the truth was told. And again, she really liked the movie. She just said that, if it was really to predict everything, it would have had to have been a 15-hour movie, 1 hour for every year, because it was just amazing. And you think, why do people stay for so long? Not everybody can afford to just pick up and move. His parents were very sick and he didn't want to leave them behind to face it on their own. You're talking one man had a job, 4 kids, 2 twins on the way, and his parents he's taking care of. So, there's a lot, you got to take into consideration the human factor too, and I believe that goes with this story as well. I believe Peter Underwood when he says it was so much. Every family that was in there said they saw something, and it matched to the next, to the next, to the next. And it really didn't get out until the Smiths, with the last group that went in there with Mary Ann. And you're going to see some movies that, of course, sensationalized, just like, Amityville. And, stuff in there that never happened. We know that. How many of those is there's like 16 Amityville movies or something now? It's like Friday the 13th, part, 21 or something. But they just keep adding and building off the same thing. I believe that Mary Ann probably made up some stuff. But again, I think that ghost connected with her. Maybe that's why she saw him, or I don't know. But I also think, what about the theory, no nun, no monk? Now, in here, they didn't really tell the story. The main story is that the monk was the one there. The nun used to come. She was 13 kilometers. She was at a nunnery 13 kilometers away. And they used to meet up. And not often, but they would meet up, and they were going to actually elope, run away, and they set everything to do it, and only one person knew, and it was the carriage driver, and apparently he turned them in. And I don't understand how you can have a monk, okay, so a religious person that's supposed to be, godly and of love. And then you have a nun doing the same thing. And then both religious sects, the first thing that you can think of is kill them. Kill them because they fell in love. I don't understand why they couldn't go, look, you've devoted all your time up to this point. It's so wonderful that you guys found
You got to make a choice. If you want to remain a nun to monk, cut it out. Otherwise, leave the monastery, leave the nunnery, and go get married.
With our blessings. Who are you hurting? You're gonna. So apparently they hung the monk in the tree and left him there for 3 days. Where the story comes from, I don't know, but it's the one I heard the most. And then apparently they walled up the nun, bricked her up so she would die behind a brick wall. And that's what a horrible, horrible thing. And again, I hope it's not true. But there's a couple of speculations of where the girls made, the younger girls from the first family, one of the 14 kids, made it up. Again, it's possible. And then if you're talking about it so much and you keep bringing on this entity and you keep talking about this thing, what happens? You could get a tulpa. And I think that is possible because now we've conjured up, a personality that's a ghost, and we know we believe it's happened before with the Philip experiment and many other things, baby Slender Man. So this could be another tulpa. I almost would think I'd rather it be a tulpa than a nun with an abscessed tooth that was walled up and to die behind a brick wall because she fell in love with a monk. So tulpa. Or help the nun cross, right? Because it's just too much.
And if it is true, no wonder she's haunting the place.
Right. And no wonder that she's trying to, send messages and stuff, get me out. To me, that sounded, but then again, she's also the wife of a rector, again, both back and forth. You be the judge. There's your story. There's plenty of links out there. Again, you've got the link to Harry Price and that BBC documentary that they did, that newsreel. That's on YouTube. You've got the Peter Underwood BBC documentary. There's another hour and a half there. They actually take you through the church, like I said, in the grounds. And then you've got a couple of other things. Like I said, there's multiple movies out there right now. I've watched 3 in the past couple of weeks, just trying to get a feel on it, and the 2 that I saw, I was like, okay, they're just making up stuff now. I mean, none of these people are ever mentioned. The reporter plays a big part in a lot of it because he was the one that came in, and he actually said to Mrs. Smith, because she was complaining and sent that letter in, he grabs the letter, jumps on the story, and comes and knocks on the door, and she says, "Are you here from the society?" And he said, "No, from the the Daily Mirror," or whatever, wherever she sent the letter. And she goes, "I think there's some mistake." And she says, "No, there's no mistake. I think you're being taken over by ghosts." So she let him in because he sounded like he knew what he was doing. He was just trying to get a story, but he wound up being immortalized in this whole story. And what he was saying was just the same stuff that they were saying. He was just backing it up. So he got himself a little story out of it. But he also wound up being the main character in a movie I did like. And I have a little trailer of that for you. And it's by Carry On Films. And this young man that started this, you can also, if you pull this up on YouTube, you'll see the whole story of that. But he wanted to tell the story. He wanted to bring Marianne into it and have her there and a little bit, of the whole theatrics of everything. But this is my little gift to you guys tonight. This is going to take us out of here. This is about 2 minutes. And you can get this, mods. I sent you that link. So drop that link now. You can actually see this for free. It's on Netflix if you want it. You can buy it off of Amazon, but it is on a place called watchcartoons.biz, and that link will be dropped here for you. But here's the trailer. This is done in graphic novel form, and I think it's probably one of the best doggone movies I've ever seen, and it's called Borley Rectory. Enjoy this this is done by Fangora to raise money to make the movie. The movie's now made and ready for you to watch, so here you go. Enjoy.
Psychic Research Society?
Daily Mirror.
I think there's been some...
Start that again for you. There you go.
Mrs. Smith, VC Wall, your husband contacted my editor?
From the Psychic Research Society?
Daily Mirror.
I think there's been some misunderstanding.
Mrs. Smith, I believe you've been at the mercy of ghosts. ghostly figures of headless coachmen. A nun, believed to have been bricked up within the walls, that appears and vanishes mysteriously. A screaming girl at the window of the blue room, dragging footsteps in empty halls. The scene of the ghostly visitations is the rectory at Borley, a few miles from Long Melford, Suffolk. It is a building erected on part of the site of a great monastery, which in the Middle Ages was the scene of a gruesome tragedy. The present rector, the Reverend G.E. Smith, and his wife made the rectory their residence in the face of warnings by previous occupiers. Since their arrival, they have been puzzled and startled by a series of peculiar happenings which cannot be explained and which confirm rumors they heard before moving in. The villagers dread the neighborhood of the rectory after dark and will not pass it.
That's the blue room, and that's the hall that the carriage goes down. And there's Harry Price with the Smiths. And there's the writing on the wall from the nun. Well, now, that's a little different. Don't you think, Steve?
Yeah, just a little bit.
I like it. I like the graphic novel effect. All of this young man's movie, I say young man, he's probably like 25, 30. And he likes to do it in that graphic, that film noir kind of comic
I
booky
love
graphic.
that.
I love it.
Looked old. It looked like
so good.
Something from way back in the day.
Yep. And there's that reporter that's sitting there writing all those stories, and the nun's coming up behind him, and he's starting to get scared, you know. And it's got the guy who plays Harry Price is amazing. Julian Sands, you'd know him, actor in so many things. He's in 2 movies though. He does the Ghosts of Borley. He plays a priest, and then he narrates this one. And he jokingly said when he was trying to help them raise money, he said, "I absolutely love this story and wanted to be part of the movie." And he said, absolutely, I love the way he does his form, the way he makes films. He said, I thought it'd be so exciting, and I got to narrate it. And he said, and when I was about halfway through, he says, you know, there's no money, right? They didn't even have money to finish the movie. But he got everybody in the movie to do funds raising and everything. It took him about 2 years. He got it and he put it out. So go watch this guy's film. It's fantastic. The link is in there. I dropped it for you. And you can watch it there for free if you want to donate. You know, he's on to like 3 other things by now. But it's absolutely amazing. And so if you can't find it, it was very hard to find. I couldn't even find it on Fire Stick or anything. I mean, nothing, you know. So you can find it there, and you can watch it for free. I highly recommend a laptop. You know, it's kind of small, and you can't get the whole thing. It's not made for mobile. So, but I watched it little. So you can watch it little too if you want, but laptop's better. So there you go. Steve, what do you think about all that mess?
No, it's good stuff.
I know, I loved it. I loved it. We had fun. We got to see Harry Price and Peter Underwood. And I just think that those two, if you're into ghosts, you should know a little bit about them because they were trailblazers. And
they were trailblazers and kind of set the standard by which even today, not too many people can get up to where they were at the time. They were very popular, very well-known household names.
Absolutely.
I mean, when's the last time you saw a ghost hunter with the front page of the paper, you know, and
I know.
Giant headlines about
amazing.
Something being haunted.
And now they, you know, then they call us tinfoil hat people, you know. Somebody told me today, sometimes that tinfoil hat turns right into a crown, don't it? A foil crown. Yeah. You know, but there you go. That's that. And I think we did Borley Rectory and the spirits of Borley Rectory and the people that were in here a solid tonight, I think. But I had one more. Steve, what you got coming? What you got going on, baby?
Always got new videos coming out on all missing persons and mysteries. 13 past midnight will be returning soon. I don't have an exact date yet. And I'm going to be in San Francisco, California at UFO Con 2022 on the 25th, 26th, and 27th of this month.
Great.
I'm the headliner Friday nights.
Woohoo! So you're going to take video, or are you going to, it's a chance to do live video on Facebook or anything like that? That's hard.
I may go live from there, but as far as my talk, they actually copyright that. They record it, and then they show it somewhere like a pay-per-view type thing.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to get somebody to sneak and record a little bit of it. But I probably will go live there, like some vendors there. I'm going to be set up. I'm going to be selling books and giving away stickers. I have some little missing person mystery stickers, little 2-inch by 1-inch stickers made up. If you're a subscriber and can prove it to me on your phone or whatever, get one for free. Everybody else, it's $1. And I'll have I ordered a big box of my own books, and I'll have those available, autographed copies.
Yep. And
so that's what I got going on. Looking forward to it. I'm looking forward, because on the way down, I'm driving down. On the way down to San Francisco, I'm going to stop at Mount Shasta and film some stuff. And then on the way back from California, I'm going to stop at Crater Lake in Southern Oregon and film some stuff down there. So lots and lots of good stuff to come. Stay tuned.
Everybody's liking this. It's a fun show. Glenn wants to know what's up next week. Next week, I have an energy. I don't really know what to call her. She's got things that help keep your junk out of the funk. Let's just put it that way. So we're having her on. She's a lovely lady named Pamela Locke. I don't know if anybody's going to be joining me on that. I haven't gotten any confirmations on that one yet. And then we're doing Monday Madness, and hardly, Steve, we don't know what we're doing Monday Madness till like Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning or something. But, no telling, because it's madness and it's Monday.
You'll have to go take a shower and think about it. That's when it usually
like the
strikes
Titanic.
us, when you're in the tub.
Yeah.
But as far as 13 past, I will be back. Don't worry. People are like, please come back. Please come back. But, to be honest, I had live streamed every single night.
Needed some time.
For over a year. It's like, I think it's like 370 days, 370 nights I'd gone live. And I needed a break for a little while. So this is like a little vacation for me to catch up on some other stuff, get some things done. I will be back. I don't know that I'm going to do every single night again, not for a while anyway, because in addition to all that, I was doing this show once a week. I was recording everything for Missing Persons and Mysteries. I was on other people's shows, whoever had asked me stuff. I had a lot on my plate. So it's nice to just kind of sit back, relax. I've been reading a lot of books. I've been working on my music and a lot of other stuff.
It's great stuff. Great stuff.
Nice little working vacation. I'm not going to vanish. I'll be back.
He'll be back. He'll be back soon. And, we can catch him here now. And, a lot of times when we get these little things, we get encouraged to do the next thing. We're crafty people. We're doers. We're getter-doners. And we're going to go out here. We just got so many ideas. Linda, that was lovely of you to say that you would love another book from me. So glad that you read that. Thank you so much. I got 2 in the works, darling. Steve and I are going to definitely get Cabin 22 in book form, and he's going to, I'm going to get it in book form, and he's going to get it, and he's going to do, put it in, what do you call it? Play form?
Screenplay form. Yeah, we're going to try to get a movie made out of it.
There you go. Maybe we should get this guy to, oh my God, if we could get this guy to do it, Steve. And Carry On Films. He'd take on Skeet and Jeb and Tater and, the Soul Reaper. Oh, my gosh, he'd do a great job with that.
There you go.
Well, see, there may be a reason why you wait so long. So there you go. I will see you guys next week. It just seems like we need to add another show in between somewhere because I think a week's too long. But
you do Sunday and Monday, and then we don't see you again until the next Sunday.
I know. I'm getting used to the job thing and getting all that stuff worked out. I mean,
maybe someday you can throw a Wednesday or Thursday show in there.
I would love to. And, when I can add it on, because like I said, it takes me a while to do these. I love to have visuals for you guys. I think it does make a big difference, even to slideshow with pictures. It makes all the difference in the world. And it does take time, and I'd rather have one really good, solid show I really have to research on and give you a good quality show than have 5 where I'm just phoning it in, and I'd rather just give you quality shows. There was a couple of things in here about people getting no notifications and unsubbed. That does happen on YouTube sometimes. I don't know why.
I found myself, my other accounts, unsubbed to missing persons and mysteries, and I know better than that. I'm not gonna
And it does
unsub
happen.
from my own channel.
Yeah. So check it out and make sure that you're subbed to the ones you want to hear from. And again, I want to mention just this guy one more time. He does such a lovely job. And he does a lot of the tour history videos. That's the one that we saw in the beginning. Again, that's an 1.5-hour video. You get to see all over inside and everything else, and also in Peter Underwood. The Legendary Haunted Borley, and it is on Chris Halton, Halton, Haunted TV YouTube. Okay, so just because we spent so much time talking about her tonight, Steve, right before we leave, I do have one more picture I'd like to share with the chat. In the honor of the Borley nun, I have a very special sister here with a message I would like to share with the listeners in the chat. So here we go. Without further ado, we have Sister Felicity Immaculata, Mother Superior of the Order of Eternal Indifference, sends you blessings on this day. We love you all. We love you all.
Good night, everybody.
And
Thanks, friends.
I hope that made you guys smile.
Jeanette Sanchez and Melissa, check your Snapchats. I sent you something.
Uh-oh, there you go. Check those Snapchats. All right, don't say that too fast. Good night, everybody. I love you. I love you, Steve, and I'll see you next weekend. All right?
You too. See everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good night. Here we go, outro.